again. You're in a bit of a better mood now.
As you can see, me and the Sledgehammer are in a great mood because, you know, victory is so sweet. And just like I told you, Titan and Doug Williams, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned. Plain and simple. Think about that, because, you know, we warned them. We give them plenty of time. The Sledgehammer comes in, takes care of business. Tell them about it, Andre.
One tough match, wasn't it?
Certainly was. I mean, you know, it's great to get out of the way, obviously. We had a lot of minds earlier. It wasn't really fair to our interviewers earlier under the circumstances. We were very stressed, we had a lot of minds. I'm sure Adam will tell you the same. We was under a lot of pressure. We felt confident. We thought we could beat the guys, but when you're in a fight, you don't know. Anything could happen.
And that wasn't.
You just don't know. That was the situation. But now we can mellow out a bit. We're happy. We're victorious. We're feeling a lot better.
And it's another good card for Hammerlock Wrestling.
It certainly is. This is one thing I'm looking forward to, and that's when Adam Bottom finishes that title off once and for all on his own. That's what I'm really looking forward to. And I shall be in the corner, pushing him, shouting, screaming, and doing whatever I have to make sure that Adam Bottom guy rips the pieces out of that title and finishing once and for all.
Do you think it's fair to say Hammerlock Wrestling is getting a good reputation for presenting a good top-to-bottom show? We haven't got weak undercards?
I think that's very fair to say, yeah. Judge for yourself. I mean, that's my opinion. I could be biased. You ask the fans.
It's like Andre says, what he's saying. I mean, these cards compared to any cards in the United States from top to bottom. Great athletes, great talent from top to bottom. There's no popcorn match in this company. There's no one want to get up and go have a drink and eat popcorn and say, well, this is a boring match. Because there's not a boring match in this company. This man puts together, you know, Hammerlock Wrestling from top to bottom. Great talent. And it's all over Europe and it's going to expand. So, I mean, hey. And then occasionally we have a problem referee that we have to deal with. But, you know, that's just, you know, you goes
a little bit.
down the stage. Hey, sometimes you have to do what you have to do to take care of the situation. You know?
Just a little teething problem, that's all. Just a little teething problem.
You know, like that. Yeah, we don't mind having to do what we have to do to get the job done. But Hammerlock Promotions, no doubt about it. Top flight organization.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
You got it.
Safe journey home back to America.
I'll enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Question, put your hand up in the room, or last question, before I wait up that. It's a huge, yeah, thank you. Fantastic turnout right there.
Have you started yet?
Who's got first question?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start the ball rolling. My name's Glenn Campbell from fabulous Melbourne, Australia. Making my temporary Northern Hemisphere autumn home in Brighton, England, but anyway. A question for,
I'll
start off with you, Adam Bomb, if I can. You've been in both WWF and WCW, and so you've probably had a good look at the business. With the fall in wrestling popularity in general, do you think perhaps the steroid scandal had anything to do with that? Do you think a lot of people lost interest, or do you think perhaps it was just it had peaked so high and it was just going to naturally drop anyway?
Yeah, you know, I think the business goes in cycles up and down. You know?
So you think the cycle's just naturally down?
Actually, I think it's starting to come back up from what I can tell. I think the interest is really coming back, especially with the Monday night wars between Raw and Nitro, the big wars between WCW and WWF. And I think the steroid thing really didn't. I mean, people like to see big, monstrous guys. I don't think they like to see smaller guys too. It's just a matter of athletic ability and look and charisma. That's what people are there for, not really. You know, I don't think that really had anything to do with it. I think, like I said, it's just a matter of...
It's like the stock market, it sort of goes up so much and crashes.
I think that right now, I feel like, especially in the States, I know the last few weeks, you've noticed if you read in the papers and editorials and magazines, you'll see that the houses are up at most, like in Madison Square Garden, which is at 17,000 people, which is, you know, it's been a lot since, it's been a while since they've had that, you know, so I feel like it's coming up.
It did seem to create some bad publicity, though. For example, do you think WWF would have lost the Saturday night main event program on NBC? Do you think if it wasn't for the steroid scandal, that show would still be... Because that was very successful, wasn't it, on broadcast television, that program?
I still don't think that had anything... I mean, yeah, you know...
Do you think that show would run its course also, so to a certain degree?
It would probably get the course. You know.
But a lot of sponsors and advertisers did pull out, didn't they? You just think it's part of the cycle, pretty much.
You know, to be honest with you, that happened before I got there. I really couldn't answer that as far as who pulled out and who didn't, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Do any of you guys hear about us or wrestling in general, or a question in general for everyone to answer?
Do you think Hammerlock will ever be able to truly expand, like, just out of Kent? And, you know, do you think you'd be able to sort of, over a few years, be able to make him sort of have a regular circuit around the country and bring in foreign wrestlers more often? And, or would it not be cost effective to bring in regular foreign talent?
If it was just me as an individual, it wouldn't be. But obviously, like any big business, you're looking for backers and that sort of thing. And you run businesses on like loans and banks and other people's money. The situation is my brother was in this morning, fortunately. It's a rather sort of topical question you should ask me. He's asked me how the tour's gone with Adam Bomb, and I've told him how well it's gone. I've mentioned a few figures and one thing and another. And he's asked me to prepare a little package for him, a business package, concerning Adam Bomb, probably 2, maybe 3 other top American wrestlers, to do a large-scale tour. Not large-scale as in like a big WWF type of tour they've done here, but like Birmingham, Manchester, places like that. Sort of the large venues with large catchment areas, as opposed to small areas. The South isn't a particularly wealthy area, so you know it wasn't that good of an area to make money as such. We've done it more as an experiment to upgrade the shows, by having a big star on them. We done it for the credibility. The reasons were manyfold. It wasn't just a financial thing, but now that we've proved that we can put on an event such as that and come out, you know, in front, just slightly in front, as opposed to losing money. You know, it was financially successful. We have made money. We're fortunate. We have made money. And as long as you don't lose, that's the main thing. As I say, I spoke to my brother this morning who come down and met Adam Bomb and a few of the lads. And he's very interested in seeing some figures. We're doing something where you maybe go to Bristol, London, Manchester, Birmingham, large catchment areas with a larger show on a bigger scale. So I'm not talking just Hammerlock doing, say, something like we've done this week in different areas. I'm on about a much larger show with a much larger attendances and going to town a lot more with the merchandise, and maybe even like having much, the presentation being better, such as a light show and that sort of thing. That's the sort of thing that we're looking at, and that's what my next project's going to be. Fine.
Okay, I got another question for you, Andre. You've been wrestling, what, 60, 70 years now? But some of the other English promotions I've seen, I mean, this is the one where it's more work-orientated instead of getting the crowd getting riled up. I mean, when you started wrestling, who did you watch? Did you grow up on Big Daddy and all that, or... Because it seems most of them were inspired by Big Daddy, and so the work rate's down and the pantomime aspect's up.
Yeah.
So
I can't argue with that. I mean, you know my feelings on that. I can't argue. There, obviously, a lot of names if I was to mention, you go, BG. You know, if you take the British wrestling scene back probably sort of late 60s, early 70s, it wasn't like it is now, but the matches were, you know, quite solid, some of them.
But you did grow up on British wrestling pretty much,
yeah. A lot more solid. The guys like, I suppose one of my main influences was Mark Marino, who trained me. Who was like a wrestling classic. He was trained by Bullet Azarati from Brighton, I think. And I trained Mark Marino doing this submission wrestling and then onto the pro wrestling. Yeah, people like that. Yeah, I mean, I used to watch it and I grew up on it.
He had quite a reputation, Azarati, didn't he?
Yeah,
he was really tough in his time.
It was all true, believe me.
Did I heard that Lou Thez was afraid to fight him. You know anything about that or not?
No.
Nothing at all.
I mean, I know that he was a very dangerous man, very fit man. He's quite an incredible man, but I say that. All I know is that I've heard lots of stories about him, probably the same ones you've heard. But he trained Mark Marino, actually trained me.
I didn't know he was from Brighton, though.
Yeah, he was in Brighton.
Oh, right.
Well, at least he lived there in the latter part of his life, for sure.
What about everyone else? You know, your influence is good. So,
You lot think, do you?
I don't know, I mean, for us, I mean, we thought most of us it would have been the WWF when we all started off. like all been into all the Hulk Hogan sort of stuff. But eventually we like got more involved, then we all started watching more wrestling, Japanese wrestling, ECW, and just I think everyone started off liking the WWF. You have to be honest, everyone started off thinking, yeah, Hulk Hogan and all that.
Was your hero Howard Finkel, Dean?
Well, Alfonso rules.
That's his dad.
Yeah, I agree with what Ollie says, to be honest. Well, although I did watch quite a lot of British wrestling when I was younger. When I was very young, sort of 7 or 8, I used to watch mainly British wrestling. But then you don't really pay a lot of attention to the wrestling, of course you're paying attention to the good guy, bad guy aspect of it, which of course is very prevalent back then. But I only really became a huge fan of it. I love the American wrestling side, huge fan.
Do you feel that you've almost in a way been forced into sort of having to bring over a legitimate American wrestler to actually try and prove to people that, you know, you're not trying to rip people off, you're not trying to give people dump clang and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean the sort of thing that you're describing to me is disgraceful. There was due to be a show in Maidstone, not at our venue, because obviously we've got it exclusively, but another venue 2 weeks prior to us, where they was advertising The Undertaker. They put the ticket prices up and done everything to try and convince people that it was actually going to be The Undertaker. I actually phoned the council, gave my full name, address, etc., and told them that my objection was actually had the show called off. Because obviously people could have went there, seen that, found out it wasn't him, and then thought that we had a fake Adam Bomb, for example. So it has actually affected me directly. But we bought Adam Bomb in to do this tour because we wanted to bring him in. It was her own thing. It was a credibility of having someone like him on the shows. Also, what else can you know, we give them King of the Rings and Rumbles, we give them a hell of a lot for a small price, but you can't keep giving them the same thing. You've got to give them something special once in a while. Now, we drew very similar numbers with ourselves on some of the shows prior to this tour. Admittedly, the difference was that with Adam Bomb on the show, we could charge a hell of a lot more for the tickets. So the overall revenue that was raised on the door was a lot more. But obviously our expenses were dearer, but it was still obviously better for us. But we didn't need to sort of, we felt we wanted to prove to people, is more how I would put it. We wanted to show people that we don't need to bring a fake in. It doesn't have to be done. It's a sloppy attitude to do it. It just doesn't need to be done. It is equally viable to bring a top star in. And we wanted to prove that these guys, they've done a lot of things that we don't like. I know we're saying that we're doing things wrong, but I mean, we've already own conclusions. But at the end of the day, they're bringing these, using these fake wrestlers and basically ripping everyone off. And they're doing one-off shows, not going back. It's killing the venue. You can't go to any other shows. It's ruining it. We've had it happen to us personally at another venue where we followed it in, and people were still moaning 2 months later about the show prior to it. The manager nearly got attacked by some children's fathers who were very upset. You know, all the bloke did was harden the hall. It was nothing to do with him. We didn't have to do it because we were plodding along quite nicely. We wanted to do it for many reasons. But getting on to the aspect that you're asking about, the fake side of it, we wanted to we didn't have to prove that we could do it. We wanted to. We wanted to show that this is them, this is us. They've got the fake, we've got the real thing. So obviously, you know, you can trust what we're going to give you. Simple as that. And that's what we did. We gave them the real thing and not the fake. And not only did we give them the real thing, we gave them for the real thing for the price they charged for the fake. So job done basically.
Do you still feel it's going to be sort of an uphill struggle though to really get established and sort of almost like reinvent the British scene, because like there's no TV coverage at all and there's no like media coverage. I mean, you get like about 3 runs in Power Slam or something. Do you feel that to really sort of rebuild the British scene you're going to have more sort of media support?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've had a lot. I mean, I've done 22 TVs, I think, in the last 2 years, most of which have been national. I've got, God knows how many newspapers and national radios, and even in Europe, I think, some of the Sky stuff we did. And you think that would do a lot, but in actual fact, it doesn't do a lot. You know, I mean, I've had all that coverage, and, you know, it doesn't do a great deal. Surprisingly enough, you know, you would imagine that everyone would have seen it and this would happen and that, but it doesn't actually do a lot. You need a lot more. So it's got to be, I think, to re-establish it, because the business is very dead here. What you've got to do is you need to brainwash the public, basically. And I mean it in the nicest sense of it. I don't mean it in a horrible sense. I mean, you need to be on the TV week in, week out, re-educating them. and letting you see that we are establishing it, and it's not going to be Dick Daddy or whoever you want to call them, you know what I'm talking about. Basically what we need is a good shop window that we can see week in, week out. So each week they can look in that shop window, see the goods, see they like the goods, and come and see the goods at the halls. Simple as that.
So you're saying the television didn't help you at all? In other words, you're saying you've got a sort of core audience that turns up to your show, whether it's on television or whether it's publicised or not.
Basically.
And you're finding it hard to expand anywhere else, really?
You mean the sort of like the chat show things and all that? By doing them, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some people that I walk down the road quite a few times that recognise me, whether it be here or anywhere, because obviously some of the shows are being national. But what I'm saying is, it's not that you would imagine like everyone would know you. You'd imagine everyone would know your shows. Everyone would see your name on a poster and it would draw like it would do in the old days when people was on TV regular. It doesn't. They might know you. They might think, oh, I've seen him on TV. Oh, that's handy that he's here. But it doesn't mean any significant. It doesn't add any weight to door numbers.
I'll ask Alan Bomb, do you prefer working sort of independent shows where you maybe just sort of have like a one-off match with someone, or do you prefer sort of working, say like with WWF, where you work, say the same match 3 weeks at a time?
To me, the independents are, there's not as much pressure, you know, I don't think, as far as being with the company. You're free to do a lot more than you can normally do, that's for sure. You're not restrained to, you end up slamming a guy into a barricade and you're not really worried about getting fined or worried about what the consequences are. Independent thing, you can do what you want, so I enjoy it.
If you could sort of make a career out of just working for independents, would you do that, or would you rather like have a sort of contract and steady income?
Just depends. I mean, with independence, you can sort of make your own schedule, you know. So that's the good thing about it. But the money's probably not as good as what it would be if you were full time every day, but then you're working twice as much. So it just depends on what you want to do with your schedule.
Can I like ask a few like the Hammerlock wrestlers? In years to come, do you like either sort of expect or maybe hope to get some sort of work abroad, you know, maybe from American promotions, or you know, is that something you're aiming for, or are you just doing this just for fun kind of thing?
No, definitely, you know, you want to get working on a basis and hopefully make a career out of it, or, you know, earn some money. Yeah, I'm doing it because I like it as well. That's what keeps me going at the moment, but yeah, hopefully.
Has there been like any interest from,
Sorry?
has there been like any interest from American promoters? Do you hear anything like that? You know, you going over there or anything?
Not really, I mean. No, it's kind of there. Really, no.
I think that'd be like, I think that goes for like most of us here, would all like to get as far as we can and like train hard enough and get on well. Why not?
Do any of you Hammerlock boys think maybe because you're English it's some sort of a novelty factor, as you know, to give it more of a global appeal to the big two? They often like to have, you know, overseas wrestlers there, just to, you know, to say we've got a world title and we've got contenders from England and God knows wherever. Do you think that'll help you or not at all?
No, I think that they're English, isn't it? I don't mean that in a nasty way. What I mean is that because it's so dead over here.
But someone like Steve Regal has used his English ancestry to his advantage, so.
Yeah, that's a gimmick that he's been given, isn't it? It's not only because he's English.
But he was Steve Regal over here, wasn't he? Playing the
He
same.
was Steve Regal, but he wasn't. He didn't have a character. Yeah.
He was very sporty.
Yeah.
The sort of image he portrayed here was of Mr. Clean Cut, abide by the rules, shaking hands.
Bit of a pretty boy, was he?
Well, I was sort of pretty boy, but very sporting, honest, down to earth. The boy next door, best way to describe it.
Right.
Like, yeah, the one the mother wanted the girl to bring home to them, you know, that sort of image. Mr. Nice, you know, wouldn't do anything wrong sort of image.
A couple of times he pretended to be from Florida as well. He's come out with a Florida t-shirt on.
Yes.
You know, so you try and change actually took his ancestry.
Well, a lot of English people retire to Florida, so I don't know, some sort of link.
So it seems that if you're English, you want to go to America, you've got to be able to have something special that the Americans haven't got, because otherwise what's the point of flying someone from England when you can get someone from America? You've got to have something special to set you apart from the others.
That's how they see it.
Yeah.
I think it's important, like, because it does hold us that we're English. Going over to the States may not be such a good thing unless you've got like the talent to experience it. So I think all us Hammerlock guys really got to make the best of what we've got now, and hopefully TV and radio or whatever, when it comes along, so like build it up so maybe on par one day it can be as big as maybe the WWF or something the size of Smoking Mountain, and we can have it over here rather than going over to America. We can do our thing here in England just as good.
This is sort of a question for everyone, really. What do you think of sort of like really extreme gimmicks, like say the gangsters who are sort of like racist towards whites? I don't know, I can't think of it. Or taking it to absolutely extreme, like taking incredibly strange wrestling, you know, like you've got sort of the abortionists and all that sort of thing. Do you think, you know, where do you sort of draw the line? Would you, you know, do you think it's fair to go to any extreme to just get over as a heel, or you know?
Well, as long as there's a market for that type of thing, like incredibly strange wrestling, you know, people out there, they want to see that sick type of stuff. So, you know, I suppose most of them can carry on running it until they notice that people don't want to see it.
You don't want to associate it with wrestling, don't you? You'll get chucked in the same boat. People say, oh, that's like that, but this is like that as well. You know, so you all get chucked in the same boat. So people just, you should take care about what the gimmick portrays and what it's showing, because people take it as such a general thing. You know, they're going to see the WWF and they see that, you know, it's incredibly strange wrestling the other week, and they say, oh no, you can't watch WWF. They're all going to lump it in the same boat. You know, until they learn, until they know, unless they're a wrestling fan, they wouldn't know any different. You can't. So, you know, I don't like really extreme gimmicks. You know.
I think you've got to keep it reasonably tasteful. I mean, saying there's a market for it, there's always going to be a market for abortion. I mean, it doesn't mean we want to talk about, you know, wrestlers abortionists, do we? I think it's just taking it too far. I think the family entertainment is good business, and obviously there are markets which are not family entertainment, which are also good business, but I think things like abortionists and things like this, I think we probably run too many people up the wrong way, and in the long term, I think it would damage in the long term.
Yeah.
You did a fully hardcore show on March 9th. Do you want to continue doing that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you want to keep it family-like?
No, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's like a lot of their shows, they do sort of, even the family ones, they try and sort of balance the show. They verge on the hardcore here and there, but because it's mixed in with something else, it sort of educates them a little bit over a period of time, plus also they accept it a little bit better, gives it a bit more excitement. But of course they're still getting all the other psychology and the other, you know, bits and pieces and a bit of class wrestling as well. But going back to the hardcore show thing, yeah, we want to do some more. I think it was successful and we enjoyed it. I think that they enjoyed it. But of course the thing with that is it's very difficult. You know, you come to the Star Centre Ashford, you put the posters up, you put it in a local paper, and there's your people. But if you do something like a hardcore show, you know, if I put a post up here for an hardcore show, they will, you know, well, what's that mean? People here wouldn't know. So we have to advertise nationwide, and like people from Wales, Birmingham, Manchester. It's, you know, it's a minority. And what we thought was we would try and, no one was providing for that minority, so we thought, well, there obviously must be a market here, people writing sheets, trading videos, we'll provide to that minority. But obviously, the setback there was, as it was a minority, the way you can publicise and market it is very difficult. I mean, we've done it, but we can expand that as well, but that's a tricky one, but we will do it, we will do more.
Do you plan to get any more American wrestlers over here at the moment? Have you got any other names lined up?
I've spoken to quite a few people, so I'll try and be, I'm not like a lot of promoters, I'll try and be honest. Which if, you know, if you wrestle for a few years, I mean, promoters tell you things, do things, you know, some of them don't pay you and all sorts, and I'm the sort of guy, like if I speak to someone, say I spoke to you, so I'm going to bring you in, and I spoke to him, I would bring you in first because I spoke to you first. There are people I've spoken to, I've spoken to various people, but I haven't made any promise to any of them. And I've spoken to Luna Vachon, I've spoken to Taz, Sabu, I've spoken to, I've spoken to I've spoken to quite a few of them. There's another WWF wrestler that I've spoken to. The ones I mentioned first, I've spoken to in point of view for the hardcore shows, obviously. And I've spoken to some other sort of former WWF wrestlers. I know some other WWF wrestlers that maybe joining the independent soon that I've got my eye on. But also we'd like to bring Adam Bomb back as well if he's available. You know, he's been very successful. He's drawing people in. He's worked really hard. I mean, his work rate, as you saw for yourself, was very hard. It's a good work rate. We've had value for money, we've had he's an easy guy to deal with. And so you've got to look for the all-round package. If you get a guy and he wants this much money, that much money, he's everything, you know, and you could be a pain up the arse all week. And, you know, I don't want that. I can't afford it. I'm too irritable for all that. So, you know, I'll be honest with you, I am. But like Brian's been as good as evolved and he's been, you know, brilliant for it and there's no problems at all. So, we'd rather do business with someone like that. And also with the work permits, obviously, it'd be easy for the work permits to bring him back in because they've got all my details, all his details. So yeah, we're looking at that as well.
Going back to the gimmick thing, I'd like to ask Brian, if you were offered sort of loads of money to say do like a really sort of extreme heel gimmick that maybe you personally found distasteful and didn't agree with it, but would you still go ahead with it because you thought, you know, it'd get you over and maybe you getting paid for it? Would you do it?
It's hard to say. I mean, it would have to be something I would have to really think over. And as far as being extreme, I wouldn't do anything that I didn't like. If I didn't feel comfortable with it, then I could actually never get the gimmick of the character over. You got to feel comfortable with what you're given or what you want to do. If you don't feel that you can pull it off, then it's never going to work in the first place. Because the fans perceive exactly what you do in the ring, they can see it, and they can sense it, they can feel it. If you don't feel like you can do it, it's never going to happen. So.
Do you feel that maybe even just ECW sort of crosses the line sometimes in terms of that?
I'm sure that, yeah. Sometimes, I mean, you wouldn't see it. They definitely cross the line, but, you know, there's a market for it in certain places. I mean, you know, they have their, once a month or whatever, they have their 1,100 people that show up in Philly, and, you know, they tape it, and they're a pretty rowdy crowd, so they, you know, they have a small market for it, and I'm sure it's growing, but, it's hard to say if it'll actually ever, because of the mainstream television violence codes and that kind of stuff, it's going to be tough for them to ever go, you know, mainstream as being on, say, being on USA Network or NBC or CBS or something like that. I don't see that happening at all. They'll have to just stay in this category.
How would you react to someone who said, well, WCW and WWF make a mockery of wrestling, they just turn it into a cartoon, they just think it's a joke. There's any promotions like ECW that actually give it any sort of credibility. How do you react to that?
Well, that's sort of like a double standard because if you look at, I mean, WCW is really working hard right now to bring up their promotion. I mean, they've hired Dean Malenko, they've hired Eddie Guerrero, they've hired Chris Benoit, some of the top talent in the independent scenes in Japan. So you can't say that they're not trying to bring in top talent because they are, and they're giving them a lot of exposure. They're bringing in people from Japan. They're also now bringing in like the cruiserweight division, which would be like a light heavyweight title, which is really good. I mean, you'll see a lot of more high flying, a lot more action stuff. So I mean, they're trying. I don't know as far as WWF. I don't really know. I mean, they're getting talent also, but you know, I think they're. I can't really tell what direction they're going in, but I think WCW is actually trying to make a move towards, you know, actually upgrading the entire company.
Do you prefer sort of believable gimmicks or like, well, obviously like your sort of gimmicks more sort of cartoony? I mean, is that sort of, I mean, why did you sort of choose like a cartoon type gimmick as opposed to sort of you know, more realistic type one?
I think it can work either way. I mean, if it's got fan appeal and people like it, you know, I mean, whether it's a cartoon type character or it's just a regular character, it has the ability to get over and people like it and it works, and you know, go with it.
Okay, got a question for Adam Bomb. You've wrestled in front of some big houses for WWF pay-per-views and whatever. You've probably wrestled in some smaller crowds, such as tonight, maybe your time in Smoky and whatever else. Is it hard to get motivated when you're in front of a small crowd, or can sometimes that sort of intimate fishbowl atmosphere lift you even higher than perhaps, say, a pay-per-view event? Like, do you ever feel nervous if you go onto a pay-per-view event at all?
No doubt about it.
The butterflies still run through the stomach and whatever?
If the butterflies aren't there, then there's something wrong. Whether it's in front of 50 people or 20,000, if you don't feel it, then there's something wrong, I think. And, you know, it's like before every football game, every powerlifting meet, or any other thing anybody's ever competed in type of athletic event, I know that you gotta feel something, you gotta be excited about it.
Do you feel more relaxed if you're at a venue you've been before that you're familiar with, or every night's a different night as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I guess every night's different, you know, but certain cities, as far as the states go, certain cities react to certain things. So it's you can cater to that type of crowd too. It just depends on where you're at.
This is sort of a general question. My last question, do No. Hulk Hogan once said that, I think he said something like, all professional wrestlers are actors. How would you react to that? To what extent do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, you're putting on a show. At the end of the day, you've got to entertain people. And I mean, yeah, if you're just going through your match another day at the office, and you've got no enthusiasm for it, that carries across to people. And it's all part of the entertainment package. This is a unique form of entertainment. Everyone knows they've been. I can't really speak for actual wrestling, but I'm sure you guys would agree you've had a wrestling match at the end of the night. You've got the bumps and bruises.
I wouldn't say we're actors, not at all, because
Like you've seen Hulk Hogan in Thunder in Paradise, you wouldn't call him an actor.
in terms of like actors, I mean, you can't call professional wrestlers actors at all, because when have you seen like an actor doing a show or something get people out of seat? I mean, I saw Adam Bomb last night, he had people out of seats coming down to ringside, screaming their heads off, like letting off steam and everything.
And all he did was walk down to the ring. So all he was doing was walking, he wasn't acting, he was just walking.
Not
and
actors. Actors is like...
Actors do fight scenes, and unless something goes drastically wrong or a slip of the hand, no one gets hurt, no one walks away limping, injured backs or whatever. But we perform, but it doesn't cross over the line to actors.
All right, let me put it a different way. To make it as a wrestler or as a heel referee, do you have to have acting ability?
Yeah, sort of, right. Sorry.
Wrestling ability is more important.
Sorry, what's the
real? I'm talking about real wrestling ability to start with.
I think confidence.
Or athletic ability, definitely. More than acting ability. I mean, you tend to come just naturally, the acting side of it, in inverted commas. Because if you've been in, I don't know, I can't talk for anyone else, but you've been in a real fight, then when you come pro wrestling, you know how you would react, and you know how it feels, and you just react the same, really. So it's an instinct thing. It's like habit. So you're not acting. You're not doing anything different than you would do any other time.
I mean, I've acted.
Obviously, you just don't hurt something.
I've acted on stage. I've done a play in front of an audience, and you feel as though you've got, obviously you've learned what you've got to do, and all the time you do feel you're acting. You've got to make sure you get it right. Last night, what I did on the mic, it was like I believed what I was doing, and that helps obviously. You've got to have the confidence to believe what you're doing. So I mean, no, I didn't think I was like acting ability at all last night. But it was just, as I said,
I think
being confident
is misconstrued, doesn't it? It's misconstrued basically. I mean,
Dean definitely can't act, because if you've seen him lying about his petrol expenses yesterday, you know the fact he's on. Plus on top of that, I mean, the thing is, actors have got a lot of money and we haven't. Also, yeah, if you asked me to go and, if you said to me there's so many £1,000, can you act in that film, make out that you this and that, I could do it. But if you said to say a certain actress or mention names, can you come do the match that we've done with Adam Bomb last night, they run a mile. I think what happens here, this is very annoying for me having such a long sort of amateur background, is that even last year when I was training up the amateurs, I got picked for the World Championships against Great Britain. So like, I'm still training, but what tends to happen is they say, oh, acting. So when they say acting, they don't say, oh, he's a wrestler that emphasises his moves, or he's an actor. He's a wrestler that makes the match more exciting by screaming a little bit loud, or he's a wrestler that is working to the crowd and showing out a little bit. They take it the wrong way, and they just assume, oh, he's an actor, so therefore he can't wrestle, therefore he's not an athlete. And that's where where it gets muddled up in that aspect of it. When they say, oh, he's an actor, it just tends to take away from any sort of real wrestling talent. People imagine then that, oh, he's an actor, so when he just fell 12 foot off the top of that ring, that couldn't possibly hurt because he's an actor. And that's the situation. He might lie on the floor a few seconds longer than he would, if you want to call it acting, but at the same time, you know, it still hurts. If you go through a table, it still hurts. You know, when people like Doug Lane there, and I've fallen from what, 12 foot, 10 foot, weighing 15, 16 stone, you know, it still hurts, believe me, I'm not to prove that. I mean, there was one guy, I believe, that wrote the sheet, I won't mention his name, that said, when you take a bump from the top turnbuckle into the ring, it doesn't hurt. Well, I wish he'd shown me how to fucking do it, because that's not, it hurts me. It's as simple as that. Yeah, it's as simple as that. I wish he'd shown me, because obviously I've been shown wrong. Yeah, this is where the muddling up comes from. Well, I wouldn't say, yeah, I'll just say that they emphasise it, they're showing out a little bit more. And you know, it depends, it's not fair because everyone's different. I mean, like, you know, if people come from different backgrounds, like powerlifting backgrounds, amateur wrestling, judo, karate, whatever. And that, I think that's where it's getting muddled up from. If you want to say, yeah, do they show out a little bit, do they play to the crowd a little bit, if that's acting, yeah, great, but you know, when you're in a match like all of the matches last night, if I used the match I was in, you know, I'm limping this morning, you don't see many actors limping after doing a little scene, do you? You know, it gets turned into, it's like bad news travels faster. It always does, and now saying, you know, a little bit of emphasising the match, they're using the word act, which then like stands out like a sore thumb, and then generally sort of takes the whole thing down. Not so much in our eyes, or your eyes that understand a little bit, but in the eyes of the general public, they're not so smart. They go, oh, actor. Oh, I see. So they, you know, they do this or that, they come out and it doesn't help whatsoever. You know, if they knew the state was in, like I just said about his knees and my back and my knees, my hip, I wouldn't run out. Oh, I've got left, you know. That's where I think the misconstruction comes from.
You said you've got quite a good amateur background.
I went once, anyway.
But, I mean, you've got an amateur background, so are you happy to do that sort of stuff where you're going through tables and doing somersaults? Do you think that an amateur sort of wrestling show would still get over, or do you think you have to do that to appeal to a crowd?
I mean, I've done a match with Dan Severn in New Jersey last year, and I feel watching it and you judge yourself, then you've got to take down. It's a pretty good, you know, shoot match. But Jimmy Snooker was on the show. And they were, you know, WWF type characters that they wanted to see. So when me and Dan Severn were doing the shoot match, so like, one, they didn't understand it. Secondly, you know, it bored the brains out of them. After I put a shot to these lads, they go, oh yeah, that's all right, they're doing this, and they don't understand it. I can take it down to the amateur club, and they go, oh yeah, that's good. And that, you know, that's the sort of problem with it. People don't necessarily understand it. And, you know, straight wrestling to watch is like, I mean, I understand it, but it can be dead boring. Unless you're really, really into it. And even then, you know, it can be like this stalemates and things. You know, that's the sort of situation that occurs with it.
But, I mean, do you think you had to introduce that sort of thing all the more?
Well, many years ago, this is not something that I'm going to sound really old now, but I'm not. Just will point out, I'm not that old.
Years.
Yeah, oh, I am. When Del Martin Promotions, which you may remember, turned into the sort of the Big Daddy fiasco, but long ago, sort of in the 60s, late 50s, even 40s, them and promoters before them, in the 40s and 50s and things like that, before Del Martin were really established, they actually used to run the shows. It was purely 100% straight professional wrestling. And, you know, people just, oh, I can't watch this. This is like boy in the brain. And just the numbers went straight down. And that's why they got forced in changing it to a more flamboyant style, with people going through the tables. Then obviously they have people going through tables then, but instead of like just having people wrestling on the floor and grappling, they introduced people throwing across the ropes and into rings and corners and things like that, which isn't technically wrestling as such in a genuine wrestling sense.
I mean, are you happy to do stuff like that, or
Yeah,
do
I
you
mean,
just do it because of the need?
I enjoy it because I like to sort of, I like to be out there doing it at a fast pace. You know, I like the heat, I like the atmosphere, and if I'm not getting atmosphere, I'm, you know, pretty depressed about it. I have to be out there doing as much as I can, doing as outrageous of stuff as possible. Some people are not happy to do it when they come down to your background because it's different what they're sort of been brought up on. But I went back to the Sombo Wrestling Club, which is the Russian wrestling, last September or just before August. And when I got there, the guy that runs the class, he's like second in the world and he's very, very good. And he's gone to the other lads there, you know, Andre's here to train us tonight. He's been very sarcastic, only little nice ways, he's a friend. He said, and him and his friend Marcus, they are professional wrestlers, so tonight we're going to show them how to do it properly. And the emphasis then was basically to throw us around and make us look pricks. But the reverse happened, because we beat the shit out of them. There's a British team now, and this is the honest truth, there's a British team there, and the guy, Martin Clark was the instructor, and he'll own up to this, and he'll tell you, I mean, I've put up people there, Martin's the first one to admit it. He said he really surprised me, both the lads really surprised me, they've done well. He said there wasn't even really Sombo wrestlers as such, because they haven't competed for a long time. And, you know, with the British team, we knocked them all over the place. And so, you know, we made professional wrestlers look really good, and like, the plan went the other way. So, just because I'm going through tables, I'm not deserting or disgracing the amateur side of it, because I can still do it and I still show that. And there's a lot of guys in the business that are exactly the same, and better. A lot better.
You touched on your amateur background just before, Andre. I mean, how beneficial do you think an amateur background is in the pros, or you don't think it matters? I mean, you got some great amateur wrestlers like Brad Rengens, who just didn't have much of a career at all, did he?
But there's another misconstruction that comes from this, you see. A lot of amateur wrestlers or submission wrestlers, whatever, I was more submission than Olympic freestyle type amateur, tend to have a lot of pride, and they don't want to do this, and they don't want to do that, and you know, they want to be on top all the time. They don't want to give and take, shall we say. They don't want to, their pride gets in the way, and a lot of straight wrestlers, a hell of a lot of straight wrestlers, submission wrestlers, whatever, do not make good professionals. They're not flamboyant enough, they're not sort of outward enough, shall we say. It's not within them to be like it. But it doesn't mean to say that they can't be. I know some other submission wrestlers or shoot wrestlers, amateurs, whatever you want to call them, that are incredibly good professionals, that are incredibly flamboyant and incredibly good performers and haven't got a pride problem at all. But in some instances, that does creep in. But it does have one advantage, that if you do know how to wrestle like that, you can spice the matters up. For instance, if you was a boxer and you wanted me to teach you how to pull a punch, it'd be a lot easier for me to teach you how to pull that punch if you know how to punch properly in the first place. See my point? Whereas if you didn't, I'd teach you how to punch, then how to pull it. So from that aspect, you can help in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? What do you think of our shows and what do you see of them? I mean, just your general opinion. All matches are incredible.
Yes, there's five.
Well, I'll answer that first perhaps. As I said, I spent 6 months in the US and I saw a lot of stuff over there. When I came here, I caught up with premiere shows from Brighton, which was disappointing, but I wasn't expecting much. And I saw an all-star show, which falls in the disappointing category once again. And then when I met up with Dean and I went to the Hammerlock show, I was really quite impressed because all you boys really seem to make an effort to give good matches. And as the hardcore show proves, you really get out there to really give the fans a good match and give what we want. I have to say, I mean, none of you are full-time professionals, and as Doug said, you all probably do it for the enjoyment. And last night's show I thought was quite great. I didn't think it was a dud match at all. I have to say, of all the groups I've seen in England, I think I have to give Hammerlock thumbs up. So you boys really look like you have a good time, and you really try to at least have good matches. And we really do appreciate that. That's why we keep turning up. That's why we're here now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought last night was a really good top to bottom solid show, you know. I mean, it had a bit of everything, but, you know, I think just about everybody went home happy, you know. I don't know. Yeah. I think the hardcore show is a good idea, and I mean, like you say, it's just sort of an experiment, wasn't it, really?
I think that's got potential to expand that hardcore. Perhaps if there's a few more shows and word gets around, I think it could really turn into something really good.
It's sad it seems to have been a bit overshadowed by controversy about star racing, which is a bit of a shame, really. But no, I mean, I really like Hammerlock. I think it's, you know, I'm just really glad that at last there's a sort of decent British promotion that's worth going to, and you can actually go and see homegrown talent that's is talented,
I think the reason probably that most of us do make such an effort is because, we've had the same problem as you, and, like the other shows. If we want to wrestle on shows in the UK, we'd have to go and wrestle on some of these small promotions that you're talking about. And you've seen what's on there, and if you go on there, I'm speaking for myself, but I really don't want to be associated with that sort of thing that is being seen on those shows. And even, I don't even like being called a wrestler sometimes if people are going to compare me to those shows, and people, we just want to draw away from those shows. So if we go out and make an extreme effort, doing, good big bumps and good matches and generally giving everyone good value for money, we want to pull away from these shows. I mean, you've seen these shows, some of these people on these shows are, if their feet leave the floor during the match, they go into shock. They try and do the first round without touching each other.
Is that the huckster you're referring to?
No. This is the British version that we have. We don't call them that. But I'm not going to commit myself. But we all know what we're talking about. There's a lot of them, most of them. There's one or two guys out there on these other shows. Yeah, they work hard and they're good. They look well. But the majority of them now are very, very old. They're very out of shape. They're walking around with great beer bellies on them, and they're looking awful. And people just can't take them serious. I mean, if you was watching Mike Tyson in Las Vegas, and this big beer belly bloke come in, walking a wrestle on some of these small promotions that you're talking about, and you've seen what's on there, and if you go on there, I'm speaking for myself, but I really don't want to be associated with that sort of thing that is being seen on those shows. And even, I don't even like being called a wrestler sometimes if people are going to compare me to those shows, and people, we want to draw away from those shows. So if we go out and make an extreme effort, doing, good big bumps and good matches and generally giving everyone good value for money, we want to pull away from these shows. I mean, you've seen these shows, some of these people on these shows are, if their feet leave the floor during the match, they go into shock. They try and do the first round without touching each other.
Is that the huckster you're referring to?
No. This is the British version that we have. We don't call them that. But I'm not going to commit myself. But we all know what we're talking about. There's a lot of them, most of them. There's one or two guys out there on these other shows. Yeah, they work hard and they're good. They look well. But the majority of them now are very, very old. They're very out of shape. They're walking around with great beer bellies on them, and they're looking awful. And people just can't take them serious. I mean, if you was watching Mike Tyson in Las Vegas, and this big beer belly bloke come in, walking around, could hardly breathe, get into the ring. I mean, you wouldn't really take a lot of, you wouldn't give it a lot of credit, would you? You wouldn't take it seriously. And wrestling is meant to be a combat sport at the end of the day, whatever way you look at it, people take it serious. And who wants to look at that sort of thing either? But it's, we try to draw away from that, which is why we try to do so much more than them. We try to do, make an effort, do harder matches and do things like going through tables and things. Yeah, I mean, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but you saw the reaction last night, you saw the reaction Friday night. We used that on the venues that we knew it would be suitable for. If it had been a venue where they wouldn't have liked it, and we know that, we wouldn't have done it. But we try and give them a hell of a lot more, and we really try and work very, very hard, and I think, and keep in shape as well as best possible. And we try and do that to draw away from the other promotions, who I seem to think that basically that we're doing it all wrong, and that we should work so hard and we should grow beer bellies. But it's and obviously we get a lot of stick from the others, but we're doing our own thing, and I think it's probably because they're frightened of the change. And so what the other promotions forget is that when they sort of started and was brought up on doing the sort of things they're doing, I was doing that too. I mean, I remember doing matches years ago where the promoter says, right, you're going to do 6 rounds. I want you to do like 20 minutes. I want you to bore everyone to death. No drop kicks, no elbows. Don't leave the floor. Don't want too many throws, and just stay on the floor. And literally to bore them, so someone who might have been mentioned earlier, a rather fat person, who'd come on, do his pantomime piece, and then go. And I had that for about 3 years. People don't realise what it's like. I had it for about 3 years. Week after week, where I was working 6-7 nights a week, having all that sort of, horrible stuff. I was just glad to get in the business, and I was brought up doing all these stuff these guys done, but I've changed with the times, and they haven't. And these guys here, they've come in, and whatever happens, they've changed as well. Even now, like some of them been wrestling a year, and say things change next year, whatever it changes to, they'll be doing the same, and the others are left behind, and they sort of resent us for it. And I think a lot of things that we do they couldn't do, and I think they resent us for that as well. But I'm not going to take the notice, and I'll just steam ahead and just keep doing as well, because I'm happy with the lads, and I'm happy with what shows do.
And the other promotions don't do anything to help themselves. I went to a premiere show with some idiot called Legend of Doom dressed up like Road Warrior Hawk. as someone advertised as the Gravedigger dressed like the Undertaker. I said there's no originality and there's no nothing to...
There's a guy actually doing the Undertaker, just as you said, the Undertaker, and the photograph is good. They changed it, but yeah. But,
yeah, I saw one Dunk the Clown also.
Yeah, and it's not fair when you bring guys like Alan Bombing, you know, it's not fair on him, it's not fair on us. It's like the Legend of Doom gimmick. Now, Hawk was doing some independent stuff about a year ago, and I seriously thought to myself he would be a very, very good draw here, and he'd be good in commercial shows. Bring him, but how can I? Because the minute I put him on the poster, that ain't him, that's that Johnny South, whoever it is that's doing the gimmick. You know, why bother going?
It's like the amount of calls we had Thursday, checking to see if he was actually arriving, and whether it was actually the actual Adam Bomb himself. It was unbelievable. Like, he was going constantly, checking to make sure he's here. Did he turn up? Do you know what I mean? It was horrendous.
You should start a 1-800 number and make some money from it.
Yeah, we went on that first show in Tunbridge. I mean, I did a little tease that he wasn't here, saying I must inform you of the whereabouts, and there was a big, oh no, not this. And then I said he's in the building, there's a big pop for it. But even so, it was until Brown walked through that door, everyone's face was, wow, it's him. Even though I'd said it was him, even though we got on the posters and we were saying we're not like other promotions, we don't rip you off and all that kind of stuff. There's that look of little moment of disbelief. And so, yeah, we've got to teach him to trust us.
Well, I mean, as he came on Friday, you came across me, didn't you? You just said, look at the faces of disbelief. And you looked around and it was just like, the kids' mouths were like down there. And then once the shock sunk in, they were just like up and trying to reach out to him and everything. It was just amazing.
It was like they paid their money to see Adam Bomb, because obviously they deserve to see him and they expect to. But when he actually walked out, they were surprised it was him. You understand me? Like, you know, you paid it, you're supposed to have it, you paid because it's a legitimate item. Obviously, if he's not there, you complain, but you expect him to go off and complain. You know, you paid your money and you think, oh, I've got my ticket now, and if it's not him, I'm going to go and complain. And you think it ain't going to be him, but you took that chance. And I think if people hadn't had this sort of fake situation going, I reckon probably there would have been double in there on Friday and probably double last night, probably double on Thursday. I think it wasn't the situation we drew reasonable anyway, but I think that the name Adam Bomb in the package that we marketed with the amount of publicity in the radio, I think bronze you having a lot more people in there. I don't think they would be in if it was. Some took the chance, some didn't. But with the other shows, it's not just that. I mean, they don't say, right, when I work a show out, when I match a show up, I'll pick certain guys of certain styles and I'll match different things in. I'll make sure that it's balanced. Like that makes them the other night, a last minute oration, because the crowd was so up to the extent that they attacked one of the security members. Then the match after that, I put a nice calm match on and I took them down and they sent them home with a nice lively match for members fighting in. With most of the other promoters, it's just like it's like 8 numbers. They put 4 matches on, that's all. And it's just like, okay, you, okay, and then like, who on with him? Yeah, he's on. As long as there is a body on with another body, and another body with another body, I don't care who's on with who, I don't care about the balance whatsoever, and just the general presentation, they don't care about how they do things, they don't, I mean, even, I've known promoters, oh yeah, there's a couple of posters there, if I want to buy something, I'll stick them up. And what was on the poster was totally different. You know, I was on at a show, and I won't say this much, but I was at Lewisham, and I think there was an opening match, and then there was a tag match with myself and someone else working against Steve Gray and James Mason in masks, basically. We were doing a mask gimmick because I've been getting a lot of TV exposure at the time, and I wanted to do some work for some extra money, and I didn't want to be associated with that promoter, so I was working in a mask, and the situation was that we'd done the match. So there's the first half of the show. Come the second half of the show, none of the other wrestlers had turned up. So I then went back on with Steve Gray as myself, and there was no 4th match. They got sent home. And that is the honest truth. I mean, you know, that is, you know, I was on a show at Folkestone, where we now run, before I run it for someone else. One guy went on with another guy, then me and another guy, and for the second half, we all come out in a tag match. And that was the show, when it should have been a tag match and 3 others. They just don't care. They do not give a toss. They think we'll do that they're stupid, they'll keep coming back. But what I figure is they're not as stupid as they first think, and they don't keep coming back, which is why we're struggling. But now we're gradually getting the trust, and we are starting to bring them up. And then, you know, they think that our business practices are not that good sometimes, and how we do things. We never let anyone down, and we always give what we promise. You know, and I mean, you know, you work for some of the other companies, you're running around trying to get your wages. If they're short, the petrol money's short. You know, they take the video at a certain time, then they're not. And it's just a terrible carry on, and I think that's what a lot of the problem is. It isn't just faking with big names. It's just in general. It's just couldn't care less. And that's basically what happens. Just, you know, I'd have the right to stick this person or that person. That's what happens. There's no pride in it at all, is there?
I mean, you guys that went to that Michinoku thing in Croydon, there's one line up on the poster. I mean, the only thing that wasn't changed was the Japanese guys. There's one line up on the poster. There's a completely different line up on the card. And then that was changed on the programme, yeah. And then that was changed. So that's 3 changes.
There was only 3 matches, wasn't there? 3 or 4 besides the Michinoku,
Yeah,
so...
3 on the undercard, yeah.
So they changed virtually everything.
And what was in the programme.
Yeah.
Because they, you know, they're all totally different.
And half the people on the poster didn't show up. they had haystacks on having some knee operation and a plane to Atlanta.
So like Andre said to me, he goes, the fittest guy on the whole show was about 55 or something like that. And
Johnny Snake.
Johnny Snake, I mean,
it was the fittest looking guy, wasn't it?
there was, I think, 16 or 17-year-old with a beer belly. You know, I mean, that says it all, really. I mean, he's obviously starting young, working for himself, but...
Well, starting drinking young or wrestling young?
training program, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Adam Bomb. Which wrestling school did you attend to get started? And do you think it's important to which wrestling school you go to, or you think if you're talented enough, it doesn't matter whether it's Luthez or Larry Sharper trained you, you can succeed either way?
Well, it's important to pick a quality school, no doubt about that. I went to, I initially got into business without basically being trained at all, which was a mistake. So then I moved to Atlanta and was trained by WCW Training Center, which is a really good one, probably one of
the power plant, was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
right.
At that time, it wasn't named that, but you know, that's just recently they've done that. But
So they must have had one head instructor there, did they? Was he a former wrestler?
Jody Hamilton, actually one who trained me, which wrestles in Assassin in the States. But another guy, Dwayne Bruce, and a few other guys that are down there. They're all really good and stuff. So. Well, from what I've seen here, Hammerlocks, you know, the stuff that they're showing these guys here is really good stuff too. A lot of good amateur wrestling and stuff, a lot of grappling, which is important to use. So, you know, these guys have been trained well also.
So even though you were trained by the WCW wrestling school, they didn't feel obligated to contract you to a long term or anything?
It just happened. So happened in my situations where I was working independence while I was also being trained there, and I had to go to Smoky Mountain. And you know, WWF called me before they did. So. But
you didn't hesitate joining the WWF?
You know, when the opportunity knocks, you got to take it.
But now you said you got some independent work coming up. Is the demand, especially Latin America, for American wrestlers as high as what it was? I mean, does anyone feel somewhat skeptical to go to Puerto Rico after the Bruiser Brody events and stuff, or do you think all that's sort of past now?
I think it's sort of past now. People still, there's a lot of Americans that go to Puerto Rico, a lot of Americans go to Japan, down in the Caribbean, wherever, you know, all in the Northeast Indies. So there's plenty of independent work in the States.
How do you find the fans in different parts of the world? Do they quite vary? Do you have to work them in different ways, or they're pretty similar no matter where you are?
Well, I think if you go to certain places where they really haven't seen wrestling in a long time, I mean, you can build an entire match and tell a story and work it all to the end, you know, make it to a big finish. So it's, and that they're in from the tie-up to the headlock, and you know, just little simple stuff, they're really into it. So just different places, you know, every city's different. You know. Oh, Germany's great. Good reaction.
Have you got any questions for the other guys as well?
Is there any truth in the fact that your Harrison does love Charlie?
No, honestly.
The hair is starting to go up, honestly. You're getting sad in my sad spells.
Should we say one last question? You want do something else?
I've got a question for anyone then. anyone can feel free to answer this, perhaps. But the recent retirements through injury of Dan Spivey and Psycho Sid, whatever his name is, does anyone, does that, you feel hesitant to step in the ring to think, all these injuries pile up? Do you think the schedule's too hectic for them now and injuries just inevitable and careers will be cut short?
I think, in my opinion, definitely the way the rectal style's going now, I mean, you're going to see careers definitely a lot shorter. No two ways about it. I mean, it's with Dan Spivey, I know he's going through probably a hip replacement surgery, and Billy Graham's done the same thing. And guys with ripping knees and elbows and shoulders apart all the time, so it's not going to get any better. I mean, I guess if you see people, a lot of top people disappearing from the sport because of injuries, people still think it's so easy. But they can get out there and do it for one night or one night or a week straight, and they have a different opinion of it.
I mean, the 1, 2, 3 kid's only 21, 22, and he's had numerous injuries already, hasn't he? Perhaps you could answer that, Wonder Boy, sorry. When you get on the ropes and when you do some of your manoeuvres, do you feel, hell, what's going to happen when I land? Or you just get up, the adrenaline flows and you want to perform manoeuvre and, afterwards you think, gee, maybe I should tone down a bit?
Well, any time I'm wrestling, like, the adrenaline's flying, obviously. I mean, I went out there last night with a bad knee. I was actually in hospital the day before. So I've irritated all the tendons. I've got one of Adam Bomb's arm pads on my knee. It's just supporting it, and it's like a bit better now. I was a bit hesitant, but once you're in the ring, like... once I was in the ring, like, I was just mind on the job, doing my stuff. I mean, I was trying out a couple of new things. Like...
I was kind of impressed by some of the manoeuvres, except when the ref got in your way when you were trying to jump out the ring.
Oh, you noticed, did you?
Yeah, we noticed that, yeah. You didn't look too happy.
No, I was a bit annoyed.
You muttered some four-letter word, perhaps.
No, but I hurt my opponent a bit worse than I thought, so he wasn't, like, ready for the manoeuvre. And by the time I nailed him with it, I caught him by surprise, really. But, you've got to do the high-flying stuff, because that's what makes Hammerlock like an all-round sort of promotion. You've got the high-flying, you've got the hardcore, you've got the wrestling. That's why we're the best.
Well, you've got to give some credit, because actually Big Daddy taught him a lot of them moves he did. Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of them moves come from, but he won't actually own up, but I've been told, I know.
But you all think Russo invented Russo was Big Daddy?
I mean, after the hardcore show, I don't think there was only anyone on the show that it didn't take at least weeks to recover from the injuries. I mean, there's people, there's people, I came to training about 2 weeks later, people still linking around on my back, on my neck, and, and it was just, like frying pan shots and stuff like that, the fans see it, and there was so many by the end of the night that the reaction wasn't as big, with the trade and stuff like that, but people forget to realise that it does, like, you get lumps in your head, you start getting really busy, the next day, I mean, it's really don't feel the pain until the next day, a couple of hours later, and then it really starts to hurt, and when you've got shows, like, I mean, I wasn't on all 3 shows, but when you've got people like Doug or Andre's done 2 really hectic matches, and then day after day, if you do one and then you've got to wrestle the next day and the day after that, it will really take it out of you.
Definitely about the pain last night. I mean, all the way to technical, right? Nagging away the pain that he caused me last night about his head. He's hit me with that frying pan, moan. He gave me a lot of pain last night. That's definitely, I definitely suffered last night.
Well, I mean, bro, I've just got to upgrade and realise I'll probably never walk properly again.
That mine's right. He was chip referee, but he's running rhythm the week.
Right. Done a good job. And there goes the bell.